we had some news break in the actual baseball front of things with the White Sox, and that was via Bob Nightingale's Sunday column, and he mentions that the White Sox and the Seattle Mariners have been engaging in trade talks around one Dylan Cease. Now, these things cooled off completely to the point where you had Pedro Grifol speaking last week, right before the season ticket holder event, that he's going to be the opening day starter. I think that that's fairly common knowledge. If he's on this team still, he is your number one starter. But also that the Sox were prepared to head into the season retaining Dylan Cease and potentially trying to make a move at the deadline. The Mariners, not a team that has been mentioned much of at all in Dylan Cease sweepstakes up until this point, are now in the conversation. It's Tuesday night. We had this break, I guess, on Sunday. Where do you think these talks are at?
Well, okay, a couple things here. First, I mean, Pedro Grifol's comments, I mean, kind of what's he really supposed to say?
Right.
He's not going to come out and say, well, we're not expecting him to be here when we break camp from Arizona. I mean, that's kind of just a very generic manager speak right there, which, that's kind of the one thing he's decently good at, I guess I would say. As far as the situation with Seattle here, Jerry Dipoto loves making trades. I mean, I think he wakes up in the middle of the night trying to contemplate a deal to make. I think the saddest day on the calendar for him is trade deadline day, because he knows that he can't really do anything after that. So it's a very somber day for Dipoto. He loves wheeling and dealing. It is kind of interesting to see them get thrown around a little bit in these discussions here. You're right. They're not a team that has been talked about very much over the course of the winter here. They've got a pretty robust farm system. Now that has taken a little bit of a hit here in the last 24 hours after their acquisition of former Minnesota Twins second baseman and Sox killer Jorge Polanco. The fact that Jorge Polanco was able to get 4 players in a deal, including a top 100 prospect and another player right on the cusp of it, is really fascinating to me. And I think that speaks to some of the reports out there from Bob and some of the other people that the Sox are looking for a king's ransom for Dylan Cease.
The sun and the moon, I believe, was that John Heyman.
John Heyman, yeah. And like I said, if Jorge Polanco is getting that much, I mean, justifiably, the Sox should be looking to get that kind of return for Dylan Cease. When you realize that, Blake Snell is out there still thinking he's going to get $200 million, even though it doesn't appear as though he has offers out there. Jordan Montgomery is going to get over $100 million.
There's still names out there on this market.
There are still names out there, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think a team like Jerry Dipoto and someone and an executive like him kind of looks at this as prospects are currency, and you can use that to get an asset like a Dylan Cease, something that's not going to cost you 9 figures.
And, I don't mean to go bringing back up the Chicago White Sox failed rebuild 2.0, but I feel like it's going to happen probably at least 200 times this season. It's funny that we say this and we sit here right now and we advocate for other teams to maybe act in that manner, when a lot of people in White Sox camp were saying, hey, it's just money. We don't need to trade all of these prospects that we hoarded. You could sort of throw the Dane Dunning, Lance Lynn trade into that equation. I think Rick Hahn did a fair job. We've evaluated that thing to the ends of the earth already. But it's just funny. Like, we want them to go and give up all of this prospect capital for Dylan Cease, when a couple of years ago we were in this situation and it was just go out and sign this free agent for $100 million. Don't make that trade. Don't trade Andrew Vaughn or some of these other names that were out there. It's interesting juxtaposition.
Well, I think in a sense, I mean, if you look at the way that the Mariners have built their team, I mean, they did go out and they signed, Robbie Ray to a 9-figure deal fresh off of a Cy Young award. that he won with the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, they subsequently traded him to the San Francisco Giants here. So they've done that. They gave Julio Rodriguez a $200 million extension. So they've kind of done some of the spending aspect of it. Again, I think it's just a little bit of a different situation because Jerry Dipoto loves to make trades. That is just in his nature and just part of his general composition. I mean, he loves to make a deal. So that's where.
Do you think something gets done? What's your inkling? Because there's been the camp that says, and I believe Bruce Levine said this on Sunday as well on 670 The Score. There's no way they walk into camp with Dylan Cease, risk injury. But then you've got Bob Nightingale's qualifier at the end of his little snippet on Dylan Cease. And if the White Sox are unable to strike a deal with Seattle, they're prepared to go into the season with him. I don't know if that means they're going to shut down any further talk, or if that means, we're just sort of, positioning ourselves for another bidder to enter at this point. But it's been relatively quiet outside the Mariners. Do you think we get something done here?
I think it's a coin flip right now. I know that's a little bit of a cop-out right here, but like you said, pitchers and catchers report in 2 weeks, and we've actually kind of seen this, I would say, over the last 2 or 3 years. It feels as though the spring training pitcher injuries have kind of had an uptick in their frequency. And, this is stuff that happens sometimes right away that first week. I mean, I remember 2011, Adam Wainwright blowing his elbow out after his first bullpen session. So these things do happen, and you always have injuries during the course of spring training. And so you never really know what's going to happen with any of the teams that are out there that are serious contenders. And, it's not that you're sitting here hoping for an injury to take place, but they are just simply a reality. And, that is the type of thing that could force desperation out of a team and kind of give them that nudge that they need to make a deal. So if it were me, I would not take the risk of going into the season with Dylan Cease on the roster, just because if we've learned anything over the course of the last 6 years, it's that if the White Sox didn't have bad luck, they wouldn't have any luck at all.